right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Flow. My name is Rymar, and boy, we got some stuff going on, don't we? Thanks everyone for tuning in. I did want to take a moment right up front to just kind of clarify a couple things about the announcement we made yesterday. Primarily that I'm not walking away from the community. I know a lot of you guys have been saying like, oh, we're gonna miss you, or best of luck on your next adventure, or something like I'm like moving out of town or something. Not moving out of town. I still plan to be here and kind of be involved in the community. The move I'm making is stepping away from kind of living under the Webflow umbrella for our community building efforts and kind of opening that umbrella up to just the greater creator economy as a whole. We talked about it on the video. I encourage everyone to go watch the full 6-minute video that's on the YouTube channel. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the plans moving forward and what I see kind of the vision for State of Flow, and a little bit about how I think we're going to approach next week. So if you were with us a month ago, we did the all hands meeting, the community all hands meeting. That was supposed to be kind of like a monthly thing. I'm not sure we're going to not do that. I think it's going to change a little bit. We are moving a lot of stuff into Discord. So some of you have seen the new experiments we're doing inside of Discord, the live stages that we're setting up, the hangouts, the different things that we're kind of doing, testing and experimenting with behind the scenes. You've also heard me talk a little bit about wanting to turn State of Flow into like a collaborative media property type thing. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to essentially let go of the reins of this State of Flow brand at some level here. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but essentially we're going to invite you all in to use this back end of what we've built to do whatever you want to do. Some of you have reached out about wanting to carry on with the open house event and kind of take that mantle. I know I mentioned in the video if anybody wanted to step up and do that. So I know a few of you have reached out to me about wanting to do that. I want to facilitate that, but I want to facilitate even one step further. I want to facilitate you all taking, the stateofflow.io website gets it's not a ton of traffic, but it's enough traffic. Lots of people come back to see what's going on with the community. And I think they'll continue to come more and more. We just connected the No Code Video website to that, which does some nice traffic just organically. And that's a showcase for lots of videos in the space. And we hope State of Flow will be kind of a place for freelancers and creators and designers and all sorts of different folks to share content without having to kind of check with anybody. If you want to post your events, if you want to do some of the stuff that like Colleen has been doing in the background, curating all the different events, some of the stuff that we've been doing. I just hate to walk away from any of this and see it just disappear. And so if anybody out there wants to get involved with that, feel free to go over to the open house page. We're still going to send out some invites for to invite everyone into Discord and to say, hey, if you want to come hang out with us, instead of an all hands or an open house event next week, what we're going to do is just have a discussion. Anybody who's interested, just show up. We're going to talk about what that looks like. I don't know that we'll stream this. This will probably be like a private, only for the folks that are on hand. And we'll make some decisions about how we're going to give up the reins of this thing. Essentially, we're going to set a couple rules. If you meet those criteria, you'll get access. You've been seeing me talk about this tool called Atmos. It's ready. It's available. I think we're going to send it to the Chrome store at the end of this week. And so by the time next week or the week after rolls, for sure, we should have approval from Google to kind of let anybody use this thing. And so the goal is then going to be to just distribute the community. What I'll do is kind of take a step higher above that. State of Flow is going to be one of a few different experiments that I'm managing and running kind of under the Atmos brand. We're doing something in the crypto space. We're doing something here in the kind of web design / digital creator space. And we're doing something in the entertainment industry. And we're looking for like one other pilot in the, let's say like nonprofit sector. We'd like to see how this can work inside of a nonprofit space. So if you have appreciated any of the stuff that we've done in the community and you're interested in figuring out like how can you take some of the momentum or some of the tools or some of the things that we're building, we're going to move forward, but we're going to go underground. And so just to clarify a few things from the announcement yesterday, I'm not leaving. I know some of you guys were like, oh, well, best of luck on your next adventure. But anyway, the next adventure starts now. I think that's all I got to say about that. We can go ahead and bring the rest of this in. I'm also, this seems like a long intro, but we got Brandon here. I'm gonna leave Brandon just sitting in the hot seat for just a second. And if you got any questions, now's the time. let's just take one more second. I'm going to go back to this just for a second because Colleen and Aiva are also in the background. But let's see. Eric Odom is saying much appreciation for the transparency and brief peek at the roadmap. Yeah, Eric, this is going to be a lot of fun. I don't really know how to do this. I don't really know how to do what I'm doing next. This has been something I've been playing with for a while. This is an idea that I've been kind of experimenting with for a while, and this is going to be something that changes all the time. We're in constant iteration with this piece of software, Atmos, that you've seen me tease. This has been a focus of mine since, actually, the reason I got into community is because of this Atmos project, except for it was called something else, and it was something totally different, and it happened back in 2014, 15. It's the reason I got into building local community kind of in my hometown. And what happened is the software back then never really evolved. We were trying to build something like what we're building, Atmos plus the Webflow layer and the WordPress layer, like the CMS layer. And that was like way too much for us to build all at once. And so even though the software didn't work out, the stuff that happened in the community, in my local community, really led me to want to kind of pursue all of this. And that's why I got into community. And so this is like just the next version of that. It's a continuation of all of that. And so this has been a constant iteration for almost a decade now. And I think we're actually onto something. I think the technology's finally there. For reasons we'll talk about today with Brandon, there's like this plethora of web builders that are kind of popping and emerging into the scene. It's wild to think that as mature as the internet is, we're in such an age of kind of growth and new products inside of the web design space. So that is interesting, and that's going to be the core of the rest of our conversation here once I bring the rest of the folks in. Steve is asking, I would like to know if something happened at Webflow that Rymar is unhappy with. There are a lot of variables at play here. To be honest, I alluded to it in the video yesterday. It's not that there's anything specific that happened. It's just that it's hard for me to continue to build value underneath something that I don't necessarily have an ownership interest in, or that I don't have a direct line of access to what's happening in the space. And so anytime we operate in the community, we're just kind of flying blind. And we try to loop Webflow in as often as possible, but a lot of times, they have agendas, we have agendas, they have directives and initiatives and things that they're working on, and those don't always align. And so to make sure that what we do moving forward is really just in line with what we want to do, we just want to step away from being a Webflow first community building thing, and we'll just focus on Atmos and the startups that we're doing. However, a lot of those startups revolve around using Webflow as like a core element of how people build on the web. And so I will not be stepping away from the world of Webflow. I will be stepping away from kind of the umbrella of event planning for Webflow. A lot of the stuff that you've seen us do over the last few years has really been Webflow heavy. And not that we will not have Webflow in the mix moving forward, it just will not be the center of attention anymore. And that also means reprioritizing some of the time we spend supporting the community, curating some of the stuff in the community. That's where we're now going to say, hey, if you want that stuff to continue, we have opened this door. You're welcome to come through it. We're going to continue to support that in some capacity, but it will not be the same way as before. And we'll just leave it at that. So hello, Shane. What's up? We'll say hello. Omar's in the house. Baltazar. Eric is here. Let's see if we got any other questions. The discussion about Webflow's current way of community building is broken would be a good one. Prairie Rookie says. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep down this rabbit hole. This is not, I have nothing negative to say about Webflow. Webflow has been an amazing partner in a lot of ways. I do think there's some misalignment with how they run and manage their community. We had a conversation about that back when I was on the FinSuite stream, and we did a What Webflow Gets Wrong stream, if you want to go back and watch some of that. I do think, it's interesting to see that we're on our, I've been in the Webflow world for 5 or 6 years now, and we're on the 3rd head of community. It seems like they've got some momentum and they're figuring out what they're doing. But again, there's just, they see things a different way. We see things a certain way. And that's always going to be the case, especially as the community grows. And there's going to be more shards, if you will, of what this community is. And I think it's almost impossible to try to keep those things aligned. If you see the world of WordPress, that's also a very big community-run operation. That's community-led. And they have lots of things that are happening, et cetera. And we've talked about this a number of times. We've talked on the stream about how what I see coming for this community. I think if you go back to like the How Big Will Webflow Get or some of the earlier live streams, we talked a little bit about what was coming, the fracturing that was coming for this community, and how things are going to get a little bit more competitive moving forward, and where I think that kind of leads things. So again, I don't want to dwell too much on that here on this episode, but An open source Webflow would be amazing. I know this would likely never happen. Yeah, Steve, that would be something else. So, Jake, find you. Want to know more about the crypto stuff? Drop a link. I check out if you check out my Twitter profile. There's a link to the Wire blockchain. Basically, we're working on some interoperability stuff that allows native interoperability across a bunch of different blockchains, any standard, modern blockchain, without paying gas fees. And so it's a major stair step. It's like building protocols at a whole nother level. I don't have time to get into that, but yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Hello, Felix. Hello, Content Nest. Maggie, what's up? With that, I think we're going to get into it. I got Brandon sitting back here on the hot seat. Brandon, you've probably seen on some of the streams that we've done before. Brandon is an educator at Editor X. With Editor X, he has background with, was it like Adobe and Disney and like some pretty big name brands. I mean, you see his little setup here. I think before you've seen him kind of like stroll in. He's got like, this view where he can like wave out the car and stuff. So, but he's an interesting character, fun guy. He kind of like what McGuire and those folks do on the Webflow side. He's kind of doing, but more on the community side in the Wix space and the Editor X space. And we did this conversation with Framer not that long ago, and I thought it'd be interesting. And it literally, I didn't have any idea we were going to be making this jump. I had Brandon scheduled like weeks ago, and so this is kind of all happy happenstance here. But we're going to have a discussion just about what's happening in the web development space, excitement of things that are happening over at Editor X. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with, some of the other web builders. Colleen's in the background. We've got experience with WordPress. Anyway, let's see. NicolaToledo.dev is saying Web Studio is a Webflow open source version. There are things popping up around the edges of stuff like this. So, Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you. What say you? You could say hello. You got any thoughts on what's going on? I know we're kind of throwing you into like a little whirlwind here, but we wanted to make sure we, respected our time commitment to you and also just have an interesting conversation. So, yeah, what's going on?
No, that's all good, man. I'm here for the ride. I appreciate you having me regardless. There. Yeah, in my spaceship, we're here on the Mars, just ready for. Really, I'm the secret operation of Elon Musk's. This is part of the operation he's not allowed to disclose. But anyways, forgot what your question was. What was your question?
Yeah, just we're talking about it was any opening thoughts really, but anything as it relates to like what you're seeing in the web builder space, the amount of competition, and like there seems to be so many new web builders popping up or options popping up. I mean, Wix went hard on this Editor X thing, in the last couple of years, and that seems to be becoming like it seems to really be maturing and becoming a popular platform. We've seen things like Framer really step up, and we're seeing even in the Webflow world, like people are saying, "Oh, Framer's the next thing." Nicola Toledo just saying this, Web Studio is a Webflow open source version. So, what are you seeing in the space? What's kind of from your eyes in your world, like what are you seeing as the web development space kind of evolves here?
Man, I'm not even sure if I would call it the web development space. Yes, in terms of how you would describe the tools, yes, web development, but it's really become, we're in the no code space where only reason I jumped on the Editor X bandwagon is because I'm a designer by trade, and how one has to use like WordPress, Webflow, like as we were talking off camera here before, like your boy is not good at admin. So if I have to read shit, I'm just like game over. It's done. I want to move boxes. I want to make the pretty things prettier. So Editor X, the only reason that it works really well for me and other people that I bring onto that platform, we're designer focused, and learning the platform is just so much faster for non-technical people. So why I'm bringing that into the conversation is I'm seeing the no code kind of replacing the web development sort of conversation. So rather than web devs being able to where like that was a very niche conversation, now you're getting creators, non-technicals being able to make really cool stuff without knowing any of the nitty gritty. So like, for example, some of the stuff that I'm seeing even more than that is a lot of the AI no code web development tools. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's really crazy. And so I've already been talking to some other people about what's being developed in that space in the no code landscape, where instead of you're just prompting to build assets, you're literally prompting a platform to build you websites.
Yeah.
And so that's how I kind of see this space. It's not like web development. It's like, how are we building online platforms that is accessible to larger amounts of non-technical people?
Yeah. It's so crazy that, and this is the perfect thread, I think. This is not planned, not choreographed, not staged, but I think that's really like what lies at the root of the decision I'm making here, is that I don't think the platform matters. Right. I think, and I talk about this. I did this talk in Argentina, and I should probably, since the slides are already done, I should do it on one of the streams, or I'll record it as a separate video. But this idea of when technology fades, and the whole concept, it goes back basically, like, we've had major shifts in society, major shifts in like how the world works based on different technologies, things like fire and agriculture and electricity and the printing press and vehicles and all these things, right? That, like, in the moment, nobody really understood how big a deal these things were, right? Like when the first group of hunter gatherers like started planting and doing agriculture, you know, the rest of them were like, oh, you guys are dumb, you know, like, we're going to keep scourging around for stuff. And eventually the people who were able to like build and create food regularly and kind of build a civilization around that ability to like farm the land became way more like powerful than folks that always had to be on the move and kind of do things, right? But in the moment, it wasn't obvious. Same thing with like AI and electricity. Like, you know, when electricity was first invented, you didn't think that every house was soon going to have this power to like light up the world. And now we take electricity for granted. You walk into a room, flip on a switch, you don't even think about it. You don't think about what's happening. You don't think about the currents that are being delivered. You don't think about any of that. But in technology on the web, it's still such a new technology, right? If you think about the internet, it's still so early. And very few of us actually know how it works. There's like this technical gap between like, you know, how the internet works versus like how you can make it work for you. And like, we're seeing that now with the no code stuff you were talking about. But I think this technology is about to fade into the background. And when the technology fades, right, what's left is the people. This is why community is so important to me, because the people are the ones using the technology. And as this technology fades, it doesn't matter what platform you use, as long as the platform allows you to connect with other people, express your ideas on a digital canvas, and somehow put into action the things that you see in your head. And this is the power of what I think we're seeing here in this no code space. So, Brandon, I mean, is that like in line with what you're thinking here with the no code movement? I mean, the technology is kind of fading away. It's getting a little more simpler. It's getting a little design forward. What say you to some of that?
Yeah, for sure. And every time you say "what say you," I kind of put you like in a Bridgerton sort of like get up. So I apologize.
How doth thou respond to my inquiry,
my lord? I hope I'm not blowing anybody's mics, or at least I hope I'm not. I didn't check my audio.
No, we're good.
You guys checked. Okay. All right. What, guys? I'm so out of it. This is why groups are important, because as soon as I start, you like asking Brandon questions. Stay still. Makes joke. Hard right turn.
Technology fades. What happens when technology fades? Or are we watching an iteration? Because I also think AI is coming, and like you were mentioning from the builder side of things, are we actually going to be building the websites for much longer? Or should we mostly be focused on the content and the experience and the monetization and you know, the impact of the things we build, rather than what we build or how we build them specifically?
Yeah. I think there will always be both sides. There will always be a side that builds infrastructure, and there will always be user of the tools. And those will just, over time, as the new tools rise, those will become the, like, for example, we are using, the developers are right now, they are basically the tool, the shovels and picks, basically building the infrastructure of AI. Eventually AI might become that base layer. And now on top of that, that is just the AI is creating the infrastructure, and the layer on top of that is just whatever the human, whatever instructs the AI to do. But where you were giving the example of like fire, electricity, like fire at one point was the base layer. People had to build on top of that, and then eventually the new technology becomes the base layer for the next iteration. So I just think some people like to play on one side versus the other. Like, as I said, I'm highly technically inept. Like, I get lost in our conversations 5 seconds after you ask my question. Like, AI cannot come any sooner. I need to be Tony Stark like yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I forget where I'm supposed to go. But I think the base level of things that I think is awesome is that we're adaptable. Tools, technology, all that stuff will always change. I think really for me, this is more so my opinion about it. Like, I could choose to be on the web development side, but my natural abilities is just like, we're not there, buddy. So I decide to be a user of the technology, understand it to my best of my abilities, and try to pull the value, as much value out of being on that side as possible. So, for example, all right, I can make websites, build businesses a lot quicker, like platforms like, for example, edX.tv, very close to what you guys have at nocode.video, but it's all edX based, resources based, and also gives people access to the other communities in the edX space. Thank you for the pull up, man.
Yeah.
And so on that side of things, it's content based, it's monetization based. I don't really have to think about the technology. It's about the community. It's about the people that are being given value through what we're able to build quickly through technology. So we built all this. Hey, this is what it is value-wise we're going to give you. Just join the thing. Join our newsletter. We're going to keep you up to date in terms of news, trends, live learning when it comes to edX, and really design. That's the difference in terms of our community. We're not only no code based, but we're highly design focused, because a lot of the people in that community, they're creatives to start, and they're trying to learn how to build or utilize technology to build what they wanted faster without the non-technical component. Just drag some boxes and shave your head.
Yeah, I think that's if we go back to like the Framer versus Webflow discussion that we had the other day, the biggest takeaway was that Webflow has a really high technical hurdle, which I totally agree with. I don't think that's a bad thing, actually. I think Webflow's technical hurdle is way less than like learning HTML and CSS natively in a code editor, And so it's like you said, there's these stacking layers. It's like the raw code, the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, all of the back end layer. Like, that's kind of the base layer that's letting people build even something as complex as Webflow. And there's one layer of complexity, but then there's another layer of complexity, right, that is being abstracted away in tools like Editor X or a Framer or something like that, where, and we've talked about this, it puts a little bit more guardrails around the edges, so you don't have to worry about like all of these little technical things that could happen, right? You get a little bit more guidance, and some more than others, right? Like, I see some of these systems, if you think about like a WordPress theme or a template, a lot of times the responsiveness will be baked in. You can't kind of break some of those things. I think it's the same way in some of the Editor X themes, but I think then you get the ability to go in and tweak. And so there's all these layers of incremental technical requirements to get involved here. And I think that's the beauty of it. There's no real standard, but I think the goal is, and I keep going back to this. Josh, I see in the comments here, I went back and re-listened to an interview I did with them, and talking about like the thing that unites this community together is the idea of trying to build things on the internet and kind of make a living out of your creativity somehow. And I think that, like, when I was reading through a lot of your stuff, Brandon, it was like, do that. It's like, figure out how to basically build something online so that you can get paid, right? Like, it's not necessarily, hey, let's all become web developers. Like, not that many people need to be building websites. If we think about it, like, it's, what can we build with this, and how do real people out there, as we build this new digital world, how do they take their creative output, put it into an online form that allows them to collect dollars from the people they interact with, or the people they talk to, or anything like that. And I think that's the root. It doesn't matter what the product is. That's the core. Even if you're a designer, that's the core. Like, if you're a videographer, that's the core. Like, if you're doing something creative online, that's the thing you're worried about. You don't care about the platform. You know, that's why people are going to Substack instead of starting their own website, because they don't want to be web developers. They just want to write, you know? Exactly. OnlyFans, they just want to show their booty. They don't want to fucking build a website. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now.
Oh God,
we out here.
Speaking of that, it was one of the first things in my feed this morning. I was like, why is this even here? Maybe you like returned. Maybe my phone heard this this conversation and like I don't know. Anyways, and then just traveled to the past. But it was like, what is it called when an off-grid OnlyFans? I don't know. I was just like, how did those two go together? And I was just like, anyways, I had so many questions. I put it in my watch later list. Anyways, Colleen's smile slowly dwindled. Baki, all right, next topic.
Baki, you're saying no code is another way of code. Yeah, UX, UI, web designers plus web developers becoming as one person with AI, I think is wrong way. Not sure what you're trying to say there, but web designers, web developers becoming as one person using AI. Yeah,
it's gonna happen. Like,
you can't.
We're just gonna be brands. Yeah. There's no way. People are gonna sneeze, and their website's gonna be built, and the focus is just customer service, great customer service, and then are the products that your customers are, or the value that your customers want from you. Are they 100% satisfied with it? I was like, we get a countdown. I was like, all I saw was like big ass numbers in I was like, what is that? Anyways.
Oh man, that's how good everything's going right now. We're just starting randoms. That was the crypto live stream countdown clock that I just cranked up there. Globner Franco is saying, should designers pick only one no-code tool to offer services? What do you think about that, Brandon?
I purely think it's up to your style of whatchamacallit. What platform works best for you? I've used WordPress, I've used Webflow, I've used EditorX. The only reason I was like, all right, we're working with EditorX is because like how my brain is, how I've worked as a designer for so long, just being able to move things around in Figma, that's how it works in EditorX. And I was just like, say no more. I don't have to fucking worry about like, there are some similarities to Webflow and EditorX when it comes to like understanding the grid system. But other than that, the way that my brain had to switch when I was working with Webflow didn't happen when it was with EditorX. I just felt more like a designer and I could be my creative self and I didn't have to like brain switch. To that question, it's not, should I just pick? If you do pick one that's good for you. And I do know that there are challenges with some, for example, even when Webflow just first came out, you know, you're fighting up against basically the old system of WordPress that owns the majority share of all websites built on the web, and now it's changing a little bit. Webflow is coming up. Wix EditorX is coming up in market share, but it's all. This is gonna be like a long dissertation, but it's about what you can use that's makes you the most valuable. So does that mean you're faster at building really cool things? Like for example, I was ass at WordPress. Like no one was giving me 10K plus to do that. Like I'm gonna have to call Colleen and cry and be like, please, my lady, please. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. No one's gonna give me $10,000 to do a WordPress thing, but for EditorX, like I can do 10K plus work very quickly. So it's up in what some people will be like, will say is, well, how is it to sell that to somebody who is locked into another platform? That's a little bit tricky, and that's kind of where you have to really figure out, you know. You have to learn how to sell the other platform. I think that's the only different. If you are a 100% like web developer or like that is your job. My job is a little bit different. My job is in content and community, basically running traffic to a niche group of people. But Yeah, that's why I was just, me explaining all that shit.
Yeah.
Again, it's like admin stuff. I'd rather talk. I'd rather have good conversations. I'd rather educate. I'm not trying to do a whole sales pitch as to why, one platform gives you 2 more pixels than the other. No,
Yeah.
we're just building cool shit. We're gonna bring people to this thing. They're gonna understand what the value is that they're gonna get out of it. I build brands. I don't build websites.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, and I think that's the difference in conversation in terms of where you kind of get like freelancers into the mix where they're like, hey, I'm using this tool to build websites. And I think really that's what's going to change. Like right now, those are the people who are building the pickaxes and shovels for the next wave of innovation, where everybody literally is going to need a website. Like people, getting a job interview, if you have, most people kind of need the website, especially in tech. I don't care really who you are. If you have a website and you're able to show your history of work, you're going to look much better than the rest of the competition. So as that continues to progress, the people who are making of the websites are going to be easier. And so when that does happen, do you want to be a web builder or do you want to be a brand builder? And the brand building is because, yes, AI could potentially do that, but on the side of that, you're still dealing with people at the end of the day. So it's tools, customer service, and right now we're kind of seeing more of the shift of, all right, websites, which are starting to become more of the pickaxes and shovels of industries versus where before, like, code was the pickaxes and shovels of the industry, and the innovation was websites. Those were hot commodities. They still are, but we're starting to see like, oh, we can make really cool things in not that much time. Now where the value is, people can make companies, brands a lot quicker. So a lot less expensive.
Yeah.
And this is just where my brain goes. Somebody else might have, because you can still make some crazy ass SaaS stuff. There's a lot of people in that.
Yeah, and I think it goes to like what you're saying. It's the lowest common denominator, right? Like you start where you start, right? Find the thing that lets you get started immediately. That could be something as simple as like literally just grabbing templates and throwing up landing pages and experimenting, right? If you want to start a blog, don't let building some crazy website slow you down from starting a blog. Go to Medium and start writing. And then you might realize like, oh, I like this Medium experience, but it doesn't give me what I need. I want to do X with my, and then you got to go find, okay, which platform allows you to do that. The problem and the thing that I would warn people about is that like, you really need to understand the limitations of whatever platform you use, because the last thing you want to do is get into a situation where you start taking on clients or you start doing certain things thinking that you know a platform and you start not being able to deliver on the promises you make. And so that's all I would say is like, whether you want to start at the simplest end of, just building little landing pages, or whether you want to build full scale enterprise level software at some point, just know that it's a slow progression. For me, when I started using and building websites, WordPress was a great tool, and I learned how to kind of make it fit for what I needed it to do. And that meant becoming familiar with one specific framework inside of WordPress and kind of adapting my workflow to that. And then it also meant making sure that the clients I was talking to understood that, hey, I can only build XYZ types of sites. And so you're limited. And so that's the only concern, is that maybe the platform could limit the type of websites you could sell. Right. And so depending on the type of websites you want to sell or the types of teams you want to work with, all of these things will impact the tool you'll want to pick inside of the space. And it's getting harder and harder to pick, the right tool because there are so many of them out there right now. And then Josh had a good comment here. The trick is to be tool agnostic and double down on strategy. It's why your expertise in helping your clients diagnose what website they need and why it's going to separate you from others. That's the magic. If you get really good at being the person that people just turn to when they need to do some of this digital stuff to get online, to take their creativity and put it on the web, that's really what the magic is here. So a lot of times you just go, you experiment, test out with your own brand, figure out what you can do, and then you start selling pieces of that. It's like, don't go sell somebody a website if you haven't built one for yourself. At least go start tinkering, go build something, go mess around with some stuff, and then you can go and be like, oh, I can do that again for a client. Let me go see if I can get somebody to pay me to do that. And that's how you start building your business, right? Yeah, and maybe we need to go back into some of that with some of these streams. Is maybe as part of this transition, we'll go back to doing some like sales and some coaching and some business strategy and some deeper stuff that, again, there's lots of people, Timothy Ricks teaching Webflow, like lots of amazing, people doing all the education stuff. My focus has always been on like, what's the next thing? Like once you learn about these tools, how do you put that into practice? Like, what do you do with that in a meaningful way? And that I think is kind of the, that's been the underlying thread, I think, of this whole conversation here.
Yeah. And Josh was like, Brandon's talking too much. Let me just write this succinct message and help my boy out. he was like, he's getting into a Bridgerton dissertation. Okay. Man, I was about to say something.
He's like, I had the smartest thing ready.
I think I do, possibly. I think one of the biggest things that I see that and why I kind of changed my approach, and I think also it's kind of what you guys are doing. It's what Reloom and Josh is doing. These large corporations, Adobe, Wix, awards you're starting to see now. Dribble's starting their education platform. These are just the ones that I've worked with, but basically every company in general, they're starting to make a switch in terms of education or platforms, like even Behance, right? They have Adobe Live, where before it was just Behance, people put their work, it's portfolio, but now they're switching to community-based education. And we're starting to see, because education is going to change a lot. And we're starting to see cheaper versions of education online. We've known that. We're literally talking to each other. We've not met each other in person. We're here on the internet. But how I started to change from being a UI UX designer and then trying to sell websites, building my agency, I was like, why am I doing this? I'm starting to see companies paying for content. I'm starting to see companies needing like educational courses. I'm seeing, because internally they're not quick enough to generate these things. So if I have the knowledge, I literally can sell a course to these companies whose tools I'm freaking using for, if not double or triple the amount of a freaking website that I'll be trying to sell somebody, like cold sell on. So I was like, I could build a long-term relationship with a brand I might actually like. Those tools I use become a part of their basically core community ambassador or whatnot. And for example, if you guys go to editorx.tv, this is just what I have done again with EditorX, but I've done the same with Adobe. I'm going to, a couple other people, but I haven't signed things. But like there's a shift in where brands are looking for people who have the type of technical knowledge that everybody in this chat seems to have. But it's like rather than focusing on building the thing, there's already a thing and they just need other people to educate around a particular product or build out the infrastructure of a brand. So I was just like, why do I keep going out and building out these websites where I have to it's like a cycle? Why don't I just attach myself to, and this is also just how I work too, why don't I attach myself to a very large hip of a brand and help them build different real estate properties or digital real estate properties that I can build out with my technical skills, but also my community building skills, which brings revenue back to the company. And I get bonuses on top of that. And plus I also get paid pretty well to do that. Yeah. So that's a whole, these companies are looking for podcasts. They're looking for people to run their communities. Like it's more fun for me versus like smashing my keyboard and clicking. Well, we still have to do that to teach, but it's a little bit less. That stuff is a little bit less fun where I actually get to do more of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
For me, that might not be fun for everybody. They're like, I don't want to be showing my face all day.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of
I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people too that build community without showing their face a whole lot, and you're seeing that a lot more with some of the AI stuff. And I wanted to bring this up. Josh says people are just tapping into the power of community, power to the people. Without getting too philosophical here, because Josh knows I always love to go down the philosophical rabbit hole on some of these topics. I see coming for the internet the same thing that came for society at scale. If you think back to what the original argument for, the founding of America was, right? It was it no taxation without representation, or this idea that, like the people wanted to kind of own the fruits of their labor, and, start a new society where they could go out and kind of be quote unquote free, or whatever that meant, right? And so we're not going to go deep down into that rabbit hole for whatever that matters. But if you look at the surrogate that's happening online, it's essentially the same thing. People, creators, are just discovering that, hey, we, the creators, we the people, we the creators, are the ones that are creating and building and making all of these things that everyone else is reaping the rewards from, right? The Facebooks of the world, the Googles of the world, the YouTubes of the world, the whatever of the world is kind of reaping the rewards of all these things that these creators are making. And the creators are starting to understand, like, hey, why don't I own some of this? Right? Like, why am I not building for me? Why am I not building a piece of this on a piece of real estate that I own? Instead of building for Facebook, why am I not building my own URL? Instead of building a group over here with Pinterest, or some kind of what am I thinking? The Reddit, subreddit. Why am I not building my own website? Instead of publishing on Medium, why am I not starting my own blog? And so what we're seeing is this revolution of creators saying, like, I want to own my piece, right? I want to build and own my own land, and I don't want to be turned off. I don't want somebody to be able to come and turn my switch off, or tell me how I can do my thing, et cetera. And so I think we're seeing this. This is what crypto, I think, is a part of, right? It's people kind of freeing themselves from the shackles of like traditional systems of money. I don't know how that plays out over time. I do see this no code thing as another piece of that in the creator economy, where folks are finally being empowered to build their piece of the real estate. But I do see some lock-in. We've talked about vendor lock-in on this show. You see me stepping away from building community under the umbrella of a company for a lot of these same reasons, right? I don't want to keep building things for other folks. And I think this is an idea that's in a lot of people's heads right now. People want to build for themselves. And so if they're going to be creative and if they're going to build, they're like, well, I might as well reap the rewards, even if that means I need to learn a little bit more technically to do that. And that could just be something as simple as learning a non-technical tool that could still be hard, right? Like learning Photoshop, you're not building websites, but it's a lot, right? Learning Illustrator, learning Figma, like these tools, even though you're not building for the web, there are lots of technical complexities. If you want to learn After Effects, if you want to learn Maya or some kind of 3D software, modeling software, like these things are hard. It doesn't matter whether you're building for the web or doing other things. There's just like some complexity inside of here that has to be like figured out. And that, that's where things get exciting.
Agreed. And we need to be ready before 2030, before what is it,
Yeah.
Schwab. What's his first name?
Yeah. Klaus Schwab.
Yeah. WEF. We don't, that is for real. Like the whole, exactly. No way. So we like, it's going to be really interesting, especially, I don't know. I just feel like all this financial stuff that's happening is, I mean, it is orchestrated. It's just how the system works. With QE and QT, but yeah, we have to learn more about ownership.
Yeah, we're getting Bakai is saying, hey, you guys made a promise in the title that maybe we haven't delivered on here. So according to the topic, what's new in terms of website speed and performance with Editor X? Still facing lower than Webflow. So we got some beef here. So let's go into a little bit of what's got you excited over Editor X, what's on the radar over there that's got people kind of buzzing in the community, et cetera.
So buzzing in the community, I will say this, Editor X, imagine this, if you guys, because right now in the state of Editor X, we are still building fundamental portions of really where a lot of the platforms have surpassed. We're still playing a lot of catch up in areas, but there's a lot of, like, for example, the strength is for creators, people who are visual, building that experience way faster than probably the other platforms that you're used to. That is where it's really strong. Now, some of these other things where we're talking about speed, where we're talking about like, why can't I, bro, like where are my gradients at? Gradients were just implemented today, so that's no longer something I can use. But we are trying to play catch up with some of these other platforms because EditorX is literally only 2 years old, and half of that was in beta. So imagine Webflow. I remember when I opened up Webflow for the first time, and I wanted to scream. Almost, it was kind of like when I used to play World of Warcraft when I was like 10, and I was literally just trying to like pick a plant, and this guy was like squatting on me for like just Rogue just kept backstabbing the shit out of me for like 3 hours straight, and then I finally punched a hole in my laptop. It was kind of like that moment with Webflow in the beginning, but it's still early stage. But the ramp up is going to be tremendous. Like the next 1 or 2 years is going to be amazing. We do know that the speed is something that we're working and need to work on, but a lot of the technical stuff, like again, I'm more so on how this platform is a lot easier for non-technical people. So for the designers, the creators, the speed and stuff, I'm like, usually my sites are pretty light to begin with. I know we're still optimizing editorx.tv because there's some big ass videos on there. But all I can say is we know that the speed is not as optimal as we would like, that it's being worked on, and there's a lot of like there are updates every day. But smaller team, a lot of daily updates, and we're just young. We're 2 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I know my ass wasn't walking then. I was I needed some help. Well, I think you guys can see I need a lot of help just in general. But
yeah, I think I going back to just the comment here. I mean, performance is important, but we just saw even recently Google change some of how they address site speed and mobile ratings. And I remember, like the FinSuite homepage was not performant, and that site used to perform really well. And it wasn't fast is what I mean, right? Like it would take some time to load up. But a lot of times that experience is separate from the value of the content. And so if someone's coming to your content and you have high quality shit, the performance is, less important than like making sure that the user experience is nice or that you can build something, right? If you can build something with Editor X and you can't build with Webflow, well, eating some of that performance is a cost for you getting up into the world of building something now. WordPress also has some of these issues. A lot of these answers, even Webflow, like you can bog down your site speed by, stuffing it with all sorts of crazy images and not having optimized pages. And so I'm not sure, obviously you want things to be as performant as possible. Right. But that also varies, especially as you start adding services to the back end, right? Are you serving a static website, or is there a login? Are there services fetching some data from somewhere else? Or other things happening? And so I don't know. And we can, Aiva, if you've got a thought here on some of that. You said recent changes, Google guidelines, site speed is now part of CRO, no longer SEO. Kinda ish. I don't know. We do have. We can go to this. I still got your screen back here, but we've got Aiva and Colleen in the background hanging with us. Aiva, did you have any thoughts here to jump in on some SEO stuff? We can just go random conversations. We can go off the rails here. At this point, we are, let's see, almost an hour into the stream. So yeah, whatever happens from here on out, nobody cares. Nobody's watching anyway. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Full respect to all of you who are actually sitting out there just talking shit. Oh, canceled. Aiva, did you have a thought on this here or no?
Yeah, I mean, if my dog doesn't bark here, sorry, he also hasn't talked probably. But that's the new kind of thing of the web. Things start to collide in very weird ways, removing site speed from SEO metrics, which just happened recently, like a few weeks ago. It becomes the norm. And here it's like, as you just said, like content becomes even more interesting. So it's kind of new clashes of rethinking how things were, what's part of what is web design, what is design, what is speed, what is technical SEO, what is not SEO, what is content itself. And it's going to change, and it's changing already. And with the advent of AI, it's going to even be changing even faster. But at the end, we're at this kind of very weird verge as we, the creators, as you say, like, if you see what's happening and follow how many changes happen and what kind of changes there are, it seems like having friends in random industries is the new meta we should strive for, and not only in your own industry, because that's, what was a CEO yesterday can become just another some sort of topic tomorrow, and it's kind of that's where the web is moving. It's very weird to watch, especially during these kind of weird times, right?
Yeah, for sure. Steve says here, I feel like we're in a period of so much technological upheaval. It's really hard to commit deeply to a single platform. Nothing is guaranteed to stick around, even in the short term. I think there are some clear winners in the space. Obviously, Editor X with Wix, and like that's going to stick. Webflow, in my mind, has got staying power. They're going to be around for a long time. It's going to be a long time before WordPress is dethroned in any real capacity. We do shows on this approximately every 6 months. I'm tracking the growth of all of these platforms, as a percentage of their overall market share. So I have a link that I have literally on my calendar to check every 6 months to see where the chart is and how these things are tracking over time. So I don't know. I think there are for sure some clear winners. Now, this is not to say that there will not be something that pops into the scene or that comes out of nowhere or that does something like one of these new platforms that's super AI heavy may not just solve a problem and do something just spectacular. So I'm not saying that won't happen either. But I do think there's some clear winners. And if you were going to pick, you've got a good, idea of where I think you should start. But I also think that don't ever get locked into one tool and stop looking around to see what else might be out there. You always want to be on the lookout for what's happening in the space, especially with as quickly as technology is changing right now. Any other thoughts?
No, sir. I agree.
We gotta get some of y'all to leave a like on this video. There's only 6 likes on the video. My heart hurts right now. I thought we were friends, y'all. I don't take back my joke now. I don't take back my joke about nobody watching. Okay, not until there's more likes. Brandon, so what's new for you? What's next for you? Like, what's going on?
Really, what's next is. So, I mean, I told you guys I'll be finally just locked in a home. So that's new construction. But other than that, just building our EditRx TV community and just both the designers and the web builders, the brand builders who are in that community, just, setting up live instruction for them. We have workshops for Figma. We have workshops for EditRx every week. We have workshops for just design, business, and we have some pretty business heavy hitters, agency owners in our community as well that chime in and help some of the people who are wanting to start an agency. We cover a lot of things, but what I'm most excited about is we finally got all those workshops set up weekly in our community. So if you guys are interested at all, whether I've seen you guys in the chat for a few shows. You guys know your stuff, whether you're watching or obviously the people on camera with me. But what I'm excited about next is really just diving into, I found a potential partner to this podcast that I guess I've mentioned or referred to a couple times in our conversation here. I found a really good partner for being able to pitch this. I've always pitched my own stuff, but I found this guy on Instagram who I was like, damn, he's really got a really good track record. And I need almost like a sales manager, or basically like a manager to help me. Hey, here's my idea. So I can just like brain fart on them. And they can actually spin that into a templated proposal that we can basically push out to multiple brands where our idea fits aligns with the brands that we don't work with. And I already have the in brand connections with the people that I want to work with. It's just like, how do we actually structure that? And so I'm really excited to actually learn how that is actually structured, because this guy also works in like real primetime TV too. So he not only knows he can bring that, because that's really all this is, right? the entertainment industry that was once just Hollywood, it's now coming to online. You see with the YouTubers and whatnot, but those same type of deals are coming to the influencers, and we can create our own shows and things like that. So I'm really excited to learn that whole process, and pitching our ideas as creatives to multiple brand prospects, and be talent for hosts, anchormen, whatever you can think of, being able to pitch those ideas to brands in a way they can also find value. And I think we're in a spot where we've built enough value in case studies behind us where we can now pitch a large reoccurring show, and do a lot of cool with it. So I'm excited about that process.
Yeah. I think this is it. This is the time of building. This is the time of exploring. I think if you're out there as a creator who's not dabbling somewhere, right? If you don't have some little product brewing, some little idea, some little service, some little something, kind of, tinkering around the edges, you're not doing yourself any justice. It's fun to sit back and watch and think about like all the things you might want to learn one day. But don't ever let a platform or the technical hurdle kind of be the thing that stops you from seeing the thing in your head and bringing that to life. If anything, this should be the time where you see those things, you have those ideas, and you find the, easiest way or the simplest way to get it out in its initial iteration, and then start asking people about it and showing it to people, and then saying like, hey, is this something you could use? Is this something valuable to you? Would you pay for this? And as you start going through that, then you start figuring out, okay, how do you scale some of that? How do you make it better? How do you make it faster? Then performance starts to matter. So many people get wrapped up in thinking about all the hurdles about what it's going to take to get the thing off the ground that they never get anything off the ground, rather than just kind of jumping. And the cool thing about the internet is you can build the tech as you're jumping. So you could literally jump off the cliff, and as you're falling, you could build your own parachute. You just got to make sure you know how much distance you got before you hit the ground. But yeah, I think then maybe one day you can get to the spot where you're pitching big boy podcast deals like Brandon over here. I think, you have anything else specific about Editor X that you wanted to drop with us, or any other thoughts about like, the technology over there, what y'all are working on? I don't know. Anything else as we wrap up here?
I would say that, the biggest thing that I will say, because it's very much also kind of what you were opening this conversation with, where we are just starting now to be, because our community is there. Well, I'm not even sure about what I'm allowed to say. So, but hold on, let me think real quick. My mouth is too big.
Let me check my NDA real quick.
let me check myself. But I think I'll say this: there's a lot of things that I am personally excited about happening. I think the main message I want to get across today is, after we've talked about, there's a whole bunch of different platforms out there. Don't sell your soul for one platform. Although, find the right platform that allows you that is optimal for how you like to work. In this case, for EditorX, I'm someone that's visual. I'm someone that's a creator. I do not want to see fucking brackets in what what I'm trying to make, or even just have to think in a logical fashion. I'm not that way. So EditorX for me, and for anybody else that's watching this, if that also sounds like you, or you even sound like a hot mess like me, you just process like I do. A platform like EditorX, I think, is creative friendly. So I think if that sounds like you want to like pop in there and see how it is. If it works better for you, awesome. If not, it's time to, check some other ones out. But my main message here is, I think what's important is, even though you don't want to stick to a platform, I think you want to stick with the platform that melds well enough with your nature to allow you to execute the best of your ability. And for me, EditorX is that. And we've found that people who are creative, who come from illustration, graphic design, the creative background, do really well with this platform versus where they've come from before. So that is kind of my main goal of, my main point that I want to get across today. The other doodads, whistles, and whatnot, that stuff's going to come. That stuff is already in existence in the market, and EditRx already has the plans to build that out. It's just the fact that we are literally pushing updates every day is a little crazy. And it's just an early company. It's 2 years old. It's hard to have like, all right, what's coming down the pipeline? All I can say is all the things that are standard across the other platforms, that stuff's coming, and there's going to be more. There's a lot of money behind Wix, and there's a lot they want to do for this platform because they see how competitive the market is and how they need to show up. So I think the main thing, regardless of, there'll always be additions to Wix. Well, I'm not sure about WordPress. I'm not gonna talk about that over there. I'm sorry, Colleen. I just don't know. I just go to their homepage. I'm like, this dusty ass. I literally go to my monitor and go,
bro.
I'm like, let's get Elementor. Let's maybe.
No.
But Colleen's gonna get off after this and be like, don't bring him on again. Did I believe he was done? He was like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But that's my main thing. The bells and whistles will come. The innovation for the platforms will come. They have to in order to stay alive. And I think it's just for creators first. It's lovely, and that's all we've heard as well too from feedback who have transitioned over to EditRx and yeah.
Is Wix? I mean, is the purpose of EditRx to create some separation from Wix? Do you know if like from a top down they're trying to like start that up as its own separate thing and have some separation from Wix, or are they still pretty proudly Wix and EditRx the same?
And I don't want to speak on behalf of the company either, but from the conversations we've had, they do want to have separations. There is an association with Wix that they don't want to have with EditRx. And there are some things that I have seen happening or plans for Wix, which is actually very interesting. It has a lot to do with what we talked about, the pickaxes and shovels we talked about today. And I think the business model that's changing for Wix. And how they're trying to position EditRx. So I think that's really all I can say on that.
Yeah.
But it's just very, yeah, they see, we all see Webflow. We see what that's done to the digital landscape. It's kind of the same positioning. That's all I can say. What's going on with Wix is in that first product, I can't really say, but yeah, separation. EditRx is for a different niche. But on both sides of the platform, very interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very interesting world for the next few years as this all kind of plays out. I've got Colleen finally into the mix here. Any thoughts as we're kind of talking about these different platforms or anything that's really been brought up today as we kind of wind down here?
No, I mean, I think what Brandon's saying about, picking a platform that works for you and how you think, and I can't remember if it was Josh or somebody had also just talked about what it is that you want to build, I think goes a long way. I mean, I think one of the things that's really exciting about like the no code space, so separate from like web design, if you take a look at, one of the things that you often need to do is connect your website with tools that you're using, like your HubSpot or your MailChimp or your ConvertKit or whatever. There's Make, there's Zapier, there's N8N, there's I think even Retool maybe fits in some of that mix. So if one tool doesn't work for you, go on to the next and try something else out. And as creatives and tinkerers, I mean, that's something that we enjoy to do, right? Just trying and testing and kicking the tires and seeing how far one can push the boundaries with something. So
yeah. And just as a closing thought, I still think if Webflow's not the front end for like a big chunk of the internet over the next few years, like they screwed something major. So just because I'm over here talking about stepping away from doing community stuff inside of their umbrella, full time, doesn't mean I still don't believe in that product. So if you're out there and you're trying to build on the web, go experiment with all of them, right? Like go open up a project with Webflow, go open up a project in WordPress, go open up a project in EditorX, like go to Squarespace, like go check these things out, like know about it. When your customer asks you about it, it's your responsibility to let them know like what they're trying to do and why you're the person, like Josh was saying before, like why you're the person that they should hire to do it. And part of that comes from knowing like, hey, how can this tool help you accomplish your goals, right? That's your job, is to help the person who's paying you do what they want to do on the internet. And the only way you can learn how to do that is by knowing all these different platforms or learning a little bit about something and then picking one to just start with, and just go see what you can build. And then once you know what you can build, you can say, okay, we can try to sell that. And then maybe while you're selling that, you could go learn something new. And then you could go sell that a little bit later. And then you just start stacking these skills. And one of the cool things about being a digital creator and a digital tinker in this world is that, like, as you stack these skills and as you learn some of this stuff, it can become exponential, right? Like those all become little hooks on the internet that are pointing back to you. That's where search engine optimization comes into play. That's where creating your own content comes into play, or building your own community, or doing certain things around the space. This is why I think starting a meetup is a really powerful thing. Because imagine you get together with other web designers and you could have discussions about, hey, so-and-so uses Squarespace and so-and-so uses Wix and so-and-so uses Webflow. And you could, have discussions about that stuff. And don't always be looking to see like what's going on in the national landscape. Like a lot of times in your hometown, in your local sphere, within 50 miles of where you're at, there are people who need this information, that need your help, that need your guidance, and they're willing to pay for this stuff. And so at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's can you use these tools to accomplish your specific goal? If yes, great. If not, then look for the one that does. So with that said, I think we'll leave it there. Brandon, we'll give you the final word. Got anything else to leave us with wisdom before we peel out of here?
That is it, guys. I just want to say thank you so much, Colleen and Raymar, for having me on. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are very much interested in checking out EditorX, I definitely recommend, the link is in the description, editorx.tv. You can find pretty much all the education you need, from introductory to other advanced things in EditorX. You can also join the community, poke around a little bit. Even if you're not into trying EditorX, we do talk about freelance business and design pretty heavily in the community. So there's that as well. So that is it. And you guys, if you want to find me, you can also put my name in Google. You can you can stalk me there. Brandon Gross, GROCE, not that nasty. That's it.
Well, there you go. Thanks everyone for hanging with us for another week. We'll be back next week with, I don't know if we'll be on YouTube next week. I'm not 100% sure. I think we probably won't stream that one. I think what we'll do is kind of have like a closed door meeting for anybody who wants to get involved with what we're doing with State of Flow moving forward. We'll, again, probably turn over the keys to the open house to some folks in the community who might want to run it. They may pick another date. I don't know what their plan is. Those conversations haven't really taken any step forward other than, hey, I'd like to maybe step up for some of that. So stay tuned for some of that. And we will, again, continue to support and do as much as we can, especially as it relates to supporting the individuals behind this community. If you're doing something interesting in this space, whether it's starting a meetup, building something cool, starting a business, launching a product, whatever it is, our goal is going to be to help you find your way in whatever that means, right? Finding your state of flow is about finding, that thing that drives you and pushes you to kind of maximize your work, your meaning, your value in this world. That was always the root cause for what this thing was supposed to be. And I'm excited actually to make this next transition into this next chapter. So with that, I'm gonna hit the fade to black. I'm gonna hit the music, and we'll see y'all next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.